It's just a matter for everything to get set up. And I'm saying hello to everybody out there and waiting to see Rob again. Okay, we are in gallery mode. I see us. I don't see if anyone else is there. I'm just going to pull it up on my phone too. Oh, wait, why is that happening? All right, Rob, can you say something? I want to make sure I can still hear you because I just turned my sound off.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Oh, I cannot. Okay, this is good. Every single time it's like different. Okay. Yeah, I hear you now. This is totally bizarre. All right, I'm going to make that stop. And I'm going to go over here where I can see you here. And then I'm going to just pull you up on here and we should be good to go. Every single time it's like this. Because Facebook, what they do is we're good. They keep changing everything. Like either they change everything every time, or it's just the case that, I have no idea what I'm doing ever. But I'm going to go, I'm going to go with they change it every time and it's not me.
That's, that's the way to go with it. Yeah.
I think so. So thank you so much for coming back on. And I had so much fun talking to you. It was so fun listening to the episode, listening to our conversation again. And I know because we have read all of your books and book groups and all sorts of things that I do, I know there's a lot of people out there who follow me who are going to be so excited to have another opportunity to chat with you and ask questions. So thank you again for coming on. And for people who don't know who Rob Schwartz is, he is the author of 3 amazing books on pre-birth planning. Is that how you'd say it? Pre-birth planning? Is that all right? Very good. Your soul's plan, your soul's gift, and your soul's love. And they're amazing books where he walks you through the way that your soul and your spirit guides plan your lifetime before you're born, and looks particularly at different life challenges and why our soul might choose those challenges for us for our learning and growth. So did I explain that okay?
You did. Yeah.
Yay. All right, perfect. So I wanted to start, we talked about this in the episode, but for people that maybe haven't listened yet, can you share a little bit about your story, how you got to be doing this whole thing?
Yeah, and let me just start by saying you can read large portions of all 3 books for free at yoursoulsplan.com. What happened for me was that I was actually in the corporate world for a number of years doing corporate marketing and communications, which I really, really did not like. Very unfulfilling, very unsatisfying life. And at the age of 40, I had essentially what amounts to an existential crisis about it. I knew I couldn't keep doing it, that I was supposed to be doing something else, but I didn't know what. And so I tried all these different ways of trying to figure it out, career counseling and Myers-Briggs and so forth. And none of that really helped. And so finally, almost out of desperation, I did something I had never done before. I had a session with a psychic medium. Now, I come from a conventional background. I wasn't even sure if I believed in mediumship, but I thought, why not? Nothing else is helping. So the first thing she says to me is, your spirit guides are here. And I said, what is a spirit guide? I'd never even heard the term before. So she explained what a guide is. And then she said, your guides would like to speak directly to you. And she started to channel them. And the first thing they said was, you planned your life, including your biggest challenges, before you were born. And I'll tell you, I just shook my head and I said, well, why in the world would I have done that? And they said, you did this for purposes of spiritual growth. Now, I probably would have thought I was having some kind of hallucination, except that they then launched into this very lengthy monologue about why I had planned my challenges. And the really impressive thing was they knew what all the challenges had been without me telling them anything. So, if you're talking to beings who know everything about you without you giving them any information, it's pretty compelling. So I came out of that session with my mind blown wide open. And then as I thought about this perspective over the next couple of weeks, what happened was that it really created quite a deep healing for me, because it allowed me to see deeper meaning in my challenges for the very first time. And then I thought, well, if this perspective can create this kind of healing for me, surely it can create a similar healing for other people. That was when I first started to think about writing a book on the subject. And then fast forward 3 years, Your Soul's Plan came out. I was no longer in the corporate world. And now I have a much more fulfilling, much more satisfying life in which I feel like I'm really making a difference in the world.
And you do regressions now, right? So you help people get this information not through mediumship, but through hypnosis, right?
Yeah, it's called a between lab soul regression. It's a very long session, usually between 2 and 3 hours. What happens is we start with some relaxation steps to relax physically and mentally. Then I guide the client into a past life. It's almost always a past life that had a big impact on the plan for the current lifetime. They experience a few different scenes in the past life. And then at the end of the past life, their consciousness leaves the body in the death scene and crosses back over to the other side, which I realize might sound a little bit ominous, but there's actually nothing to it. It's very gentle and easy. When they get back to the other side, usually they're greeted by a spirit guide. They talk to the guide about why that past life is important. And then the guide takes them to their council of elders. Everybody has a council of elders, very wise, loving, highly evolved beings who basically oversee their evolution. And your council knows literally everything about you, including every aspect of your pre-birth plan. So when you get in front of your council of elders, that is potentially a life-changing experience because they can answer literally any question you ask them. The main questions people ask are, what did I plan? Why did I make those plans? How am I doing in terms of fulfilling my plan? And how can I better fulfill my plan? So by the time you come out of a session like that, you really have a great understanding of why you're here and what the next steps are for you.
So I have not done one of these, but I did get one for my husband for his 50th birthday, and you were kind enough, and with his permission, to have me listen to that. And it was fascinating. And the thing that was really cool that I'm remembering is that the past life that he started with. So I didn't believe in any reincarnation or anything when I married my husband, but he did. And he did because he would have dreams. He said, I would have dreams about places that I knew I had been, but I hadn't been in this lifetime. And I knew they were past lives because I just knew. And one of his dreams that he told me about was being in the mountains. And that was the lifetime that he remembered in his session with you. So I thought that was so cool anyway. And so sometimes we use these spontaneous memories too. But it was so cool being able to see that whole process. I would have asked totally different questions than he did, but that's okay. I was like, what? Why did you ask them that? But again, that's why we are living in different bodies. But no, it's so cool, and I know that he loved the session and he got so much out of it. So I'm going to look to see. Oh, we have some questions. Oh, that's a really good question. All right. So I'm torn between, I'm going to look at some of the questions that are coming in for you, and some of them are specific. So are you okay with specific questions? I know that you can't necessarily answer, or maybe you can, and I might get something, but I'm guessing that you can't necessarily answer a specific question for a specific person off the cuff. But if they ask you a question that's personal to them, are you able to get a reading some information of why a soul might?
Not specific to that person. I'm not a medium or a
Right.
channel, but if they ask about something that I've seen in the cases I
Okay.
look at for my books, I may be able to tell them.
Okay. So I'm gonna hit you up with some of those in a minute because we're getting a couple. Most of them are and guys too. I'm gonna keep all your questions too because I am a medium, so, and a channel. So I might get some answers too, but I also really want to focus as much as we can on Rob's wisdom today because we are so lucky to have him here. But I do have a couple of general questions as well that I had that came through that I'd love to hit up first. And the first one is something that you said in the interview that we had, and that also, I think it's in this week's, I think it's in the promo too. So some of you might, even if you haven't seen the episode, you might have seen that quote pulled. That really stuck with me and that I've been sharing with pretty much everybody. But you said that you had this understanding that right now in this period of time in Earth's ascension, that only 1 in 3 souls that wanted to be here on Earth got to be here. And that, I think that's stunning. I think it's stunning because one, I think one of these things that it really speaks to the fact that even though being on Earth sometimes seems like, why the heck would I choose that? Why would I be here? This is so hard. It's really an honor and something that your soul has chosen to do and that you have been chosen to do. It's huge.
Yeah, that is my understanding. There were 3 times as many souls as available bodies. So how did they choose the 1 in 3? you had to have something specific to offer the ascension process. Now, what might that be? Well, a lot of people have what I would call active missions. Like me, we're doing something in particular in the way of activity in the physical world. But then there are equally large number of people who are what you could call frequency holders. Their plan is not necessarily to do anything other than radiate a certain vibration, like a vibration of love or joy or peace. And that is a profound contribution to the ascension process.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I see that a lot. I see that a lot with special needs souls too,
Yeah.
where I have a lot of special needs clients or parents of special needs clients. And I often feel that they're here, but they're not participating for a reason. And not that someone who's special needs is not participating, but sometimes there are certain ways in which you're not going to get as lost in the human world, say, if you're not going to get to a point in life where you can have a job or get married or some of these other encumbrances, which we think of that's a bad thing. But I think sometimes if you're here just to be a vibratory energy, it's nice not to have to participate too much, because that can sometimes lower the vibe, right?
Yeah, that's true. And, a lot of people say, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. What is my mission? And so forth. I used to say that myself.
Right.
But that's why it's so important to understand that your mission may be just to vibrate at a certain frequency, and what a profound impact that has on the world. That doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. You're doing
Right.
everything, really.
Yeah, it's huge. And I have clients too. I think sometimes too, because we have this idea in our human mind, purpose doing,
Right.
purpose doing. So, and you and I are similar in that I went through a period of time when I was like, there's something I'm supposed to be doing and I'm not doing it. And I need to figure out what that is, because it's what I'm here to do. And it has been aligned with the work that I do and how I make my living. But it doesn't have to be that way. I have amazing clients that have done corporate jobs and all sorts of things, or stay-at-home moms or artists, or that are making an amazing contribution, even though they don't think of what they do typically as service, right?
Yeah. And the other thing I would say about that, we come here really for the purpose of making mistakes. Now, why do I say that? Because you learn from your mistakes. Your mistakes are your growth. Your growth occurs in a rise in your frequency or your vibration. And your growth, your vibration, is your major form of service to the world. And that's true for people who have very active missions as well. Your
Yes.
vibration is always more important than anything you do with your body.
Yeah, I want to pause on that because it's huge. And I hope that people are kind of understanding that. Can you explain a little bit more, like, what does that mean? Like, what is our vibration? Everybody knows, but I want to hear it from you.
Well, your vibration is your frequency. It's
Right.
literally the frequency at which the cells of your body are vibrating, and it radiates out across the entire planet, across the entire universe. There's actually no separation between people. It appears that there is, because we're in physical bodies with five senses, and that limits things in appearance. But actually, everybody is connected, not just on the planet, but all throughout the universes. So when you raise your vibration, let's say you go from a vibration of fear to a vibration of unconditional love, that radiates out throughout the whole planet, throughout the whole universe. It affects every living being, literally every living being.
Amazing. And I think too, I've been told many times from my guidance, but I want to hear what you get on this, that when somebody works through a particular challenge, right, or does their own work, it automatically frees up. It frees up energy. I don't know how I want to get this from the guides. It can serve as a catalyst for others who are riding a similar wave. That's how they say it. A catalyst for others who are riding a similar wave to also crest and make that growth.
Yeah, that's absolutely my understanding as well. In my first book, Your Soul's Plan, I talk about that in terms of think that you are hacking your way with a machete through a very thick jungle. The trail that you hack with the machete makes it easier for everybody to follow behind you. That's what you're doing with your vibration.
Yeah, no, that's huge. That's a really good one. So I often tell people, just being here and doing you is being of service.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, it's huge. All right, but this is leading me to another question, because we often think of vibration as a hierarchy, and we think like, ooh, high vibration people are the best. And I mean, I don't think that, but some people in the spiritual communities, right? What about people that are maybe showing up more narcissistic or less heart-centered, or I mean, they got chosen to be here too. right?
Well, a lot of those people are playing roles that were scripted before birth. The learning in the Earth School is all about contrast. It's a realm of duality. So you need both the light and the dark. It's through the contrast that we hone our preferences. And when you hone your preferences, that's where the growth and learning really comes from. So now what happens? Sometimes the people who agreed before birth to play the darker roles, like the narcissist, sometimes through the use of their free will, they will carry things farther than were agreed upon before birth. And that makes life on Earth risky and a little more difficult than we would like. But that's essentially what is happening here. These are scripted roles carried out by pre-birth agreement.
All right. So people know before they come in, this is what I'm signing up for, and I'm going to be the shadow in this life.
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, a classic example, and hopefully this isn't a controversial statement, but that would be President Trump, in my mind. That's a role that he agreed to play before birth. And whether you agree with him or disagree with him, it doesn't really matter, because by playing that role, he's making a contribution to ascension just like everybody else.
Absolutely. And I would say too, and I would think that, at least this is the information that I get, you might get something different. When a spirit, or when a human being comes in and has a big impact kind of life, right? Where they're very famous, they're very well known, they're a political leader, those kinds of things. I would think that's always known in advance, right? And that probably, does that carry a heavier load of responsibility for that soul?
It is known in advance, but the important thing to understand here when we talk about these roles and life paths, it's not the case that there's only one pre-birth plan for each individual. There are actually many. If you think of a pre-birth plan as being a sheet of paper, everybody comes in with a whole stack of sheets of paper. The ones at the top are the highest vibrational life plans. That's where the learning is done through love, peace, and joy. The ones at the bottom of the stack, those are the lowest vibrational plans. That's where the learning comes through pain and suffering. You're going to learn either way, but one path is a lot more joyful, a lot easier than the other. And the way you activate those higher vibrational life plans is simply by being the most loving person you can be. If anytime you have to make a decision, you ask yourself, what would love do now? Love with a capital L.
Right.
Whatever the answer to that question is, if you do that, you will put yourself on the highest vibrational life path.
So beautiful, and that's so clear, and that makes me feel tingly and happy all over, because someone asked the question, I hadn't posed it yet, how do we raise our vibration? And that is such the perfect answer to that question, right?
Yeah, right.
Asking yourself. And it's an intuitive thing too, right? It's not like you don't have to figure out what love would do. You tune in and it will show you.
Yeah, it's more a question that you're answering with your heart, not so much your mind.
Right. Yeah. No, it's beautiful. And I think too, and I want to know what you think about this, but my mind will sometimes loop on the mistakes, I must have done something wrong because I'm experiencing this. So I haven't hit the highest, the highest level yet. And my spirit guides think that's really funny when I do that. And they've been laughing with me a lot recently, but what do you think on that? I mean, there's no missteps, right? There's just different choices.
Well, there are mistakes from the viewpoint of the personality, the human being, but from the viewpoint of spirit, it's just a choice that leads to learning in a different way. Again, your mistakes are your growth is your service. And the reason that is true is that when you learn from your mistakes, you raise your vibration.
That's huge. Yeah. So I want to let that sink into yours truly for a minute, because I love that. And I'm going to be playing that part again. When you learn from your mistakes, you're raising your vibration, which means that when you perseverate on your mistakes, then you're not raising your vibration yet.
That's true. You place yourself at the vibration of whatever you attend to. So this is basic law of attraction stuff. If you want to create the best possible life for yourself, attend to the highest vibrational things in your life. And they don't even have to be things that are physically present in your life. It can be an idea, a feeling of gratitude, whatever it might be.
Yeah. One of my friends, colleagues just posted it. So cute. Her little hack for raising your vibe is celebrate every day. She's like, just celebrate. Don't celebrate a thing. Just have a celebration every day. And her thing is like, if you celebrate every day, then you'll start to, the things will be drawn into your life for you to celebrate. But I was just thinking, like, why shouldn't we just be randomly celebrating anyway? Because it feels good, right?
That's exactly right. That's the way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to have a thing. Just be like, hey, like I'm just going to celebrate because celebrating is fun. All right, I'm going to look at some of these questions and see what we got. A lot of these are specific. Um, Janely, I'm happy to see you here too, and Cindy and Tina. Uh, Curious to know why, this is maybe a general question. Cindy wants to know, curious why I chose to reincarnate with my twin. Have you ever seen twins in any of your case studies?
I have not specifically researched twins. I can't comment on that in particular. But one way you could get an answer to that question, a lot of the pre-birth planning revolves around a soul level desire to cultivate and express certain qualities that are important to the soul. I call these qualities divine virtues. It's things like compassion, patience, empathy, unconditional love, and so forth. So you might think in terms of the virtues. What qualities or virtues are you cultivating as a result of having this person in your life? That would be one of the main reasons you chose them.
Beautiful. I love that. And that applies to everybody, right? Like, what am I cultivating? And sometimes, too, I'm hearing that what we're cultivating sometimes is, right? Someone pushes our buttons, makes us impatient. And that is how we're cultivating patience, right?
Right. Again, it's a realm of duality. You learn through the contrast by experiencing how unpleasant impatience is. It helps you to value patience.
Really funny because at the same time, Cindy just posted, yeah, my twin, right, but I think before I said it, Lil, twin certainly requires a lot of patience.
There you go.
There you go. See, I was answering you, or I don't even know. That's so funny. All right, Katie asked, this is a good question too. Any tips for raising kids during this time on Earth?
Well, I think the important thing there, there's so much divisiveness and there's so much propaganda in the media, and children hear that regardless of whether they're watching TV themselves. I think the thing that you want to do, and this would be important in any era, but particularly now, is help the child learn to be self-referencing. Self-referencing means, and that, by the way, is one of the virtues, it means you come to see yourself as the highest and best source of wisdom and knowledge for you. It doesn't mean you don't consult with others, but if you do, you take whatever they've told you, run it past your own intuitive filter, and decide, is this truth for you? So with children being bombarded with all of this divisiveness and propaganda, the important thing is to teach them to refer to themselves as the ultimate arbiter of truth.
I think that nothing can be more important than that. And I think that's true for all of us, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And do you think now in this time where there is so much divisiveness and there is so much conflicting information, I mean, do you think that it's being heated up more and more so that people get that memo?
I think that's one of the reasons that those things are happening. In general, my take on what is happening is that there's all this light flooding the planet, and it's bringing up every ounce of darkness there is so that we can release it. What does it mean to release it? Basically, it means to see it, thank it for whatever it's teaching you, and bless it, and then just let it go.
I love that. I'm going to pause on that too, because that's been my life plan on everything as of late. To see it, to thank it, to bless it, and then let it go. No, it's so powerful. And I think that a lot of times, right, our minds pull us in. It pulls us in, and we feel like we have to fix the problem from the level at which the problem is happening. What would you say to that? You know what I mean, right?
I know what you mean. And like Einstein said, you can't fix a problem at the level at which it was created. So there is a misunderstanding there. Fixing a problem at the level at which it created, that's just attending to the problem, which gives it energy, which gives it greater life. So what you want to do is fix it, quote unquote, fix it from a higher vibration. And that again is the vibration of love. What would love do now? And then do that.
Right. And you can do that at any moment too, because we were talking before about mistakes. And I find this is my conditioning. It might be different for you, but I find with me, like I think I have episodes on this on the podcast as well, that sometimes when a mistake is made, what you want to kind of do is go back in time, right? And like perseverate on, as if like there's that's it. It's done. It's over. There's no forward momentum. And what I understand is even when you're experiencing the consequence of a misstep, the only thing you're ever being asked to do in the present moment, wherever the present moment takes you, is to choose love. And the moment you choose love, everything starts to unwind in a good way.
Well, that's right. And self-forgiveness is a form of love.
Yeah.
So if you're still focused on your mistakes of the past, choose to forgive yourself. And it is a choice, and
Right.
that will allow you to release it and focus on something else.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I've been told by some people that, one of the major, and you have the virtues, which I want to hear again because I was looking at the screen and I didn't get them all um, into my left brain at least. But I feel that a big part of our life plan, right, is to express and experience love, right? I mean, isn't that the highest calling?
That is essentially the bottom line as to why we're here. In the talks that I give about pre-birth planning, I identify 5 main reasons why we plan challenges before we're born. But if you take those 5 and distill them down, they have a common denominator. And the common denominator is that we're learning lessons in how to more freely and more fully give and receive love. And receiving is actually just as important as giving. The flow of love is circular in the world. Half of the circle is receiving, half of the circle is giving. If you don't allow others to give love to you, you're actually blocking the flow of love in the world just as effectively as if you never give love to anybody else.
Yes, amen. And I have up until now, not even up until now, no, just still, a lot of my clients that I have attracted over the years are people that are in that loop. They are amazing givers, not receivers. And sometimes too, I feel that, but you'll have to tell me what you get. I feel like it's sort of a level of soul growth, an older soul sort of lesson, getting over that hump of, okay, now I've learned how to give. Now I've learned how to make loving choices. How do I receive? And also, how do I give back to myself? I feel like a lot of people are in that place now where they have learned about giving love to others, and they have learned about not judging others, though if we're judging ourselves we're still judging others because again it's loop, but at least they've made a lot of progress in what goes out, but they haven't learned how to receive or give back to themselves. So I'd love to hear what you think about that.
Well, I think there are a couple of things going on there. One, it's often a worthiness issue. People don't feel worthy of receiving love. And I think the other thing that's happening there's a misconception about what it means to give love to other people. A lot of people feel that it necessarily entails sacrifice. And that is not the case. You can certainly give love to others without having to sacrifice anything about yourself in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, sacrifice is where we get into scarcity and
Right.
we feel that it's either me or it's you, but it's never that way. And people that have worked with me before have heard me, I've been given 3 questions to ask when we're talking about being of service to others. And they're always the 3 questions. The first one is, am I being called to serve in this situation? Because, and you ask them and answer them intuitively. Because sometimes we're not. Sometimes, I mean, you're always being called to serve on some level, but sometimes you're not being called to give or do anything in this particular situation. It's not your karma. It's just not it's not your circus or your monkeys or whatever that expression is. And if you get a yes, then the second question, again, to answer intuitively is, how am I being called to serve? And again, you ask that intuitively. Oftentimes, when I ask that question, it's so surprising because sometimes you're being called to serve by doing nothing still, right? Sending someone blessings, walking away, tough love, or serving yourself in that moment, because in that moment, what the other person needs is to know that, you're not going to sacrifice yourself and you are going to do what you need to do. And that's going to help them understand on some level at some point that they too have permission to do that. And then the third one, and this is the one that a lot of people get stuck on, is the am I willing? Because the answer can be no. And if the answer can't be no, then you don't fully understand service, right? Because you believe I'm a martyr. And if, I feel that calling, I must, and you have to respect your free will and what you want to do. And,
Yeah,
and anyway, go ahead.
well, the martyr service paradigm, I think, went out a while ago. That used to be how service was done
Right.
on the earth plane. And there were many people over the eons who had that as a life plan, but that is
Ah,
not what we're doing now. It's not about martyred service anymore.
that's so cool. So you think that that was part of the learning and that it was important for souls at a certain level of development to learn and understand that?
I do. Historically, I think that was part of what we're doing here, but we've moved beyond that at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that a lot. And I've seen that in my own development. Now, you work within the books a a person that channels Jesus, Yeshua, Pamela Cribby, who's one of my favorite authors, as well as you. And and I have always felt I am born and bred from an atheist Jewish family, so no connection there. And yet I've been talking to Jesus since I was a child, and have always felt this connection. And I know now from my own experience that I've just had many past lifetimes, going all the way back to when Jesus was on Earth, in that framework. So anyway, I lost my train of thought in sharing that. But do you think this is part of the evolution of that teaching, right? Because I think early Christian teachings were very much about martyrdom, right? Or I mean, it was misinterpreted or interpreted that way. Anyway, I'm just
Well,
curious what you think and
I
what
think
Pamela
what
thinks.
I think what happened historically is that the leaders of the church took Jesus's teachings and then changed some of them in ways that would allow them to accumulate and maintain more power over the generations. So some of the teachings were misused, but and that's where the martyred service paradigm came in as well.
It's so cool. And I wonder too if our spirits, uh, you know, will work with what I mean, I know this is true, but I want to hear what you think. We'll work with whatever the raw material is on earth at the time to learn our lessons. So we know what it's going to be. We know what the conceptual frameworks are going to be. We know what the actual events and things are going to be to a certain extent, because there's free will and everything's in flux. And we kind of use that as the raw material for our learning. And also we go in there knowing that we are also affecting the collective by going in there and learning. Did that make sense what I just said?
Yeah, it does make sense. And the way I often think of it is that when your soul creates the plans for your life, it's as though the soul has a history book in front of it, the history of planet Earth, but the book has literally no beginning and literally no end. And the soul is flipping through the pages looking for that point in linear time that will maximize the intended lessons. So you're choosing the time period in which you're incarnate, your family, your friends, your employers, your teachers, enemies, if you're planning to have enemies, the geographic location, all of this is taken into account before you come into body.
Beautiful. All right, I'm going to backtrack a little bit because Katie has such a good question to follow up on something that we said before that I missed. She says, what would love do can be confused with what is nice. What are your thoughts on this? And I think we talked about it a little bit with the service paradigm, but I don't think we really nailed that. And that's such a good question.
Well, I could see where some people would confuse those two things. But if you really understand what love with a capital L is, that would include not being so nice that you're going back into martyred service. That is not what love with a capital L is.
Right. So love with the capital L is always honoring. I always feel that, and this, I don't know what you think, but I always feel like it's always honoring yourself and your needs first. And that's not from a narcissistic standpoint. It's not from a scarcity standpoint. It's from understanding that when we honor our own highest calling, our own highest truth, automatically we're honoring all that is. We're honoring everybody else. And so when you get that and you really, what is the best, highest choice for me right now from that loving state, everything else falls into place and you don't have to worry so much. And you'll never get the answer that what's in the loving choice for me is to take a machine gun and shoot down 100 people, because that's just not a loving choice. But no one listening to this is going to be doing that anyway, so I think we're good.
Right. Yeah, you often hear people use the analogy of you're on an airplane that's starting to go down and you have to put on your oxygen mask before you can put on anybody else's for them. You've got to give love to yourself if you're going to have love to give to other people.
And as you said before too, when we don't love ourselves, then we're blocking the flow of love. So even the love that you're putting out, which is great that you're caring for people, it's going to be, and this is a hard word, but this is what comes through, it's going to be tainted by the lack of love that you're showing back to yourself.
Yeah, that's true. And, people who have difficulty across a number of lives receiving love from other people, what they will often do is plan another incarnation in which they have some kind of physical handicap that actually forces them to rely on others for their care. That's one of the main reasons that those kinds of handicaps are planned.
That's really, that makes sense, so that you can get that care back, and you're forced to, and you have that experience. I sometimes see that too with people that have illnesses in a lifetime, or sometimes end of life illnesses, where they really are attracting because that need to be cared for and to be able to bring that in. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, I've seen that. In my second book, Your Soul's Gift, there's a story about a woman who has severe dementia, and the caregiving that her husband provides for her. It was an incredibly difficult experience for him, but this was something they both set up before they were born. And one of the things she wanted to do was get better at receiving love from others.
And I see that a lot. And you hear people a lot of times when they have illnesses, or they have what they'll say is, or any kind of crisis, wow, it was amazing all the people that showed up for me and cared about me. So it's an opportunity for your soul to take that in.
Yeah,
You don't need the illness for that. You can often just find it anyway. But I know it's amazing to have that experience. All right, we have a couple good questions coming in. Cindy asks, so time isn't necessarily linear. Well, I'll let you take that one. So time isn't necessarily linear.
Well, in the non-physical realm, there is no time. So it's not the case that there's nonlinear time there. There's just no time at all. Eternity refers not to infinite time, but to an absence of time.
All right, perfect. Sorry, and answering, I was getting to the next one. Katie asks, why don't more people on Earth, oh God, it's coming out. Why don't more people on Earth understand and know about soul planning and the idea of the true purpose of life? Yeah, that's a big question. Why don't more people know about this?
A lot more people are finding out. The idea of pre-birth planning is moving pretty rapidly into the mainstream. I've been doing this work since 2003. And so in those 18 years, I've seen it move much more into the mainstream. And now the pace at which it's moving into the mainstream is accelerating.
And you've heard people for years, I mean, in certain woo-woo communities, say things like, you choose your parents. So that's along the lines of this, right?
Yeah, that's the first idea about pre-birth planning that most people hear about and find that they believe. But that's just really a very small part of the pre-birth plans.
All right. Yeah. And I've been told too, when there's cases of adoption, usually that's planned as well. So you will know that this is my vehicle for birth, but I'm going to be adopted to these people, right? Usually that's not left to chance.
It's not left to chance. There's a whole chapter in Your Soul's Gift about the pre-birth planning of adoption. And what Spirit tells us in that chapter is what you just said. It's not left to chance. Now, people then wonder, well, how in the world can somebody who's adopted, how can they guarantee before birth that they're going to be adopted by certain people? That all has to do with the law of attraction, the vibration. The frequency of the person being adopted and the adoptive parents brings them together.
Wow, I can see that. I never thought about it that way, but I can totally see that. That's so amazing. All right. Unfortunately, there's so many good questions, Rob. All right. Jana Lee asks, I'm curious about babies' births. I work as a doula and attend births, and sometimes they go sideways, but is this really sideways, or is a baby's born, oh my God, it keeps coming, emergency, cesarean, for example, or induction? No, don't do that. For example, truly the time and way that they were meant to be. Did you get that? Sorry, it kept cutting out.
I think I got the gist of it. There's a story in Your Soul's Plan about somebody who plans before birth to be a gay man who's going to discover his homosexuality within the context of a heterosexual marriage. And his primary life challenge is to be true to himself, tell his wife what he has learned about himself, and then have the courage and the strength to leave the marriage. Well, when he's in the process of incarnating, he's born prematurely. and the premature baby is placed in an incubator at the hospital, a nurse accidentally puts too much oxygen into the incubator, and that has the effect of destroying the retinas in both eyes. So the baby is completely blind. Now, that was not a challenge that was even discussed before the incarnation. Well, when the blindness takes place, this soul's guides come to him. They pull him out of the infant body, they take him back to the other side, and then they say to him, a nurse has made a mistake at the hospital, too much oxygen in the incubator. You will be blind, completely blind, if you continue with this incarnation. What do you want to do? And then there's this long discussion about the pros and cons of continuing with an incarnation in which he's going to be blind. They actually bring in the soul who had agreed to be the wife. They tell her what's happened, and she backs out. She says, we didn't talk about this. I didn't sign up for it. I don't want to go through with this. And then the guys say to him, okay, this planned challenge of, announcing your homosexuality in the marriage, that isn't even going to happen. You'll just be dealing with blindness for the whole life. He thinks it over and decides, I want to take on this challenge, goes back into the infant body, and is still here in body. He's been completely blind his entire life, has never even seen any light at all, which I understand is quite unusual. So things like that do happen.
Wow. I'm wrapping my brain around that. I just got a little chill when you were talking about that. What causes something like that? Is that law of attraction? Is that just random? I mean, I guess, yeah.
Well, we all have free will. So you can use your free will to do things that were not foreseen in the pre-birth planning sessions, or things that perhaps were discussed, but they were viewed as being very, very low probability things. But that's what makes Earth a risky place to incarnate. And this is one of the main reasons why those of us who incarnate on Earth, we are considered among the most courageous beings in the entire universe, because we're willing to take on the chance that something that we didn't want to happen will happen.
Amazing. And the way that I see it, and again, this is not my specialty, but the way it's been, maybe it is, but the way it's been shown to me is when you're previewing a life, it's infinite. So there's an infinite number of possibilities. It's like, oh God, I can see it, but I can't find the words. It's like it's like spitting. And so you're going to kind of get the snapshot of what's the most probable possible. But again, like anything is possible, right? I mean, because does that make sense what I just said? I don't know if I articulated that nicely.
I think I understand what you said. That's a little bit different than my understanding. My understanding is that there's a framework, or there are parameters around the life. So within the framework or the parameters, your free will decisions and those of others will determine what happens, but you can't actually go outside the framework. So for example, let's say that you plan before birth to be born with a physical handicap that can't be treated by medical science in the period in which you're incarnating. And you would know that before coming into body.
Right.
Then short of what we call a miracle, you will have that physical handicap for the duration of that lifetime, and you can't go outside that particular parameter. But there are very few things like that that are set in stone. Physical handicaps, your choice of parents, obviously once you're born, you can't change who your parents are. But the number of things like that is very small. Everything else is basically a probability of some kind.
Right. And I would think even those things, I mean, there's a possibility, I suppose there'd be a cure there. I mean, but it would just be, I would think, very highly unlikely given the parameters of what you set up. I mean, the parent thing, I can't think my way out of that one, but.
But for the physical handicap, it would require what we consider to be a miracle.
A miracle, right. But there are people that experience miracles, right? But I would imagine those people, that was probably part of their life plan as well. The potentiality for them to have an experience, have an out-of-body experience, have a I heal myself experience, right? I would think that would be planned.
Those things are discussed before birth. Near-death experiences, for example, that's part of a pre-birth plan. And that often leads to what we call a miraculous healing.
Exactly. All right. The questions are coming in, and I know we have to wrap up soon, which is really sad. But I just want to look and see what else is there. My parents passed away when I was very young, and my siblings and I were raised by an aunt or uncle. It was not a fun childhood. Why would I have chosen or agreed to all that? What was the lesson?
So let's think in terms of the divine virtues. what virtues could you cultivate as a result of going through an experience like that? The first one that comes to my mind is compassion. It's likely, unless you allow yourself to be embittered by it, it's very likely to make you much more compassionate than you otherwise would be. It will also help you to cultivate empathy. It could potentially help you to cultivate a lot of self-love and unconditional love for others. Those are the first things that come to my mind.
Okay. Let me see. I got another one. Let me see if this will be a good one. All right. It looks like the universe is putting me in a, just keep going out, putting me in a place. All right. Putting me in a place of needing to speak up against what I perceive as injustice. It is done in a way, triggers where I have to speak up and it takes a lot of energy. I can choose love, but I can also choose to show love, but also choose to show that non-discrimination is love. I don't know if I'm really going to get this right. Did I still use love? And then were the rules changed? Oh, that's a complicated question, Gidra. What do you, let's see what if you followed that.
I'm not sure that I got all of that, but the comment that comes to mind, Abraham, as channeled by Esther Hicks, they've talked about Michael Moore, the filmmaker, who makes those documentaries in which he, rails against a number of different things that he's opposed to. They say that Michael Moore is creating more of the very problems featured in his movies because he's giving it attention, which gives it energy. So if that is true, and I believe that it is, the way to handle those things is not by opposing whatever it might be, it's by finding the alternative and promoting the alternative.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. I love that. And I definitely think that answers her question. All right, I'm going to take a couple more. Then we got to let Rob go, and I need to get concert tickets because what's my other love. All right. Hold on. There was a really good question. Katie asks, can you talk about other realms? What are they, and what are the experiences like versus Earth?
That has not been a focus of my research at all. I'm very much focused on why we plan challenges for the Earth experience. But in general, the higher realms, as I understand it, are realms of bliss, unlimited joy, infinite abundance, perfect health, no separation. So you're in a state of unity consciousness. And then it just gets better and better as you go even higher in frequency.
And can we bring more of that here, do you think, on Earth?
You can. And again, the way to do that, the simplest way, is to ask, what would love do now? And then do that. But there are other ways as well. Whenever you're grateful for anything, that brings a little bit of the higher realms into existence here. Raising anything you do to raise your vibration, that brings us closer to that experience.
I'm going to look and see if there's any more questions that I missed. You guys, thank you all for tuning in. These were really great questions. So I'm so glad that we got all this great activity. If I missed you, I'm sorry. Facebook is just not letting me scroll to the very beginning, even though I know it's there. I'm going to try one more thing. And in the meantime, Katie asks, and this is a very good question, can anyone work with you? Or how would someone work with you?
You'd have to be over 16 years of age to do a private between lives soul regression. But other than that, anybody who speaks English can work with me. Go to yoursoulsplan.com. If you click on sessions in the main menu, you'll find out about private sessions. There's a pretty long wait. The next openings aren't until November. If you prefer not to wait that long, take one of the online workshops. I do one about every 6 weeks. The next one is February 26th and 27th. We do a group between lives regression, another group regression to contact loved ones on the other side, something called the Divine Virtues exercise that tells you which virtues you're working on. I give a talk about pre-birth planning. The best way to find out about your life plan, short of doing a private session, is to take one of the workshops.
Perfect. And Jen will have all of that information in the comments, so you can find that. I know someone who just took the group, one of your online workshops, and loved it. So she found that to be really helpful as well. So I again, haven't done either, but I can speak to both vicariously. Rob, are there any parting words? Thank you so much for lending your time to this. It's just been such a joy and an honor to chat with you and to learn from you even
Yeah,
more
you're
than
very
your
welcome.
books.
I enjoyed talking with you. The one thing I would just emphasize again is how much courage it takes to incarnate on Earth. We really are revered and respected throughout the universe for having the great courage to come here. And so, whenever you are feeling small or weak or powerless or helpless, or maybe just wishing you could go back home to the other side, remind yourself that you are one of the most courageous beings in the entire universe.
I love that. It is a beautiful, beautiful place to stop. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I know you guys had some more personal questions too, so I am feeling the pull that I will collect some of those and maybe we'll do another live and I'll see what comes through intuitively. But today I really wanted to just give it over to Rob and just enjoy our access to the wealth of knowledge and wisdom that he had to share with us. So thank you, Rob. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and be on the lookout for another live coming soon.